to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Joth Mathews, third certified master athletic administrator at Pope High School in Marietta, Georgia, current member of the NIAAA board and podcast host. So welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Hey, Hutch, thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it. Love your podcast, and you've had some great guests on here. So I know now you had to resort to the bottom of the barrel and take another one. So no, appreciate you having me on, and I'm looking forward to today.
Perfect. Let's have you start by sharing with our national audience and international now, where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
All right, yeah, I'll try to get through it. On our podcast, we call it the back of the baseball card bio, so I'll try to stick to the back of the baseball card. So
I like it.
I grew up in Winder, Georgia, which is over near Athens, near the University of Georgia in Northeast Georgia. I had a great upbringing. My parents, Joan and Gary, just a great family. Winder was a great place to grow up during the time I did there. Graduated in 97, went to Shorter College and played college baseball at Shorter NAIA school at the time. And I was on work study for folks who know what that is. And basically, I learned how to be an athletic director at Shorter College. I obviously played baseball, but learned how to mow grass and sweep the basketball floor, do the shot clock, do laundry, all the things that we do. All those little tasks that we do as athletic directors, I learned there at Shorter, and really didn't know I was going to use that training for my career. I was a middle school education major, so I got a job in a middle school and coached baseball at a local high school, Centennial High School in Roswell, Georgia. And my wife, who was a girlfriend at the time, had already moved to Atlanta. She was a year ahead of me. I like to tell her she's old. She's 9 months older than I am, and I get my money's worth for 9 months. But she had already moved to Atlanta, and I knew the Lord was calling us to be closer together, and felt like that we probably spend the rest of our life together. So moved close to her. Like I said, got a job at a brand new middle school. Man, it was great working in a brand new school, and coached at Centennial High School. My third year teaching, I moved over there and taught and coached at Centennial. And after that year, I moved to Laster High School, which really was a career game changer for me. I was able to work for an elite teacher coach. Mickey McMurtry was the head baseball coach there, and he was an elite American government teacher, taught me how to be a big-time teacher and a high-level championship elite coach. So I owe a lot to him and his relentless nature in teaching and coaching there. And then after spending 8 years at Lassiter, I had decided early on while I was at Centennial, our athletic director was a guy named Mike Cloy. He was a head football coach and athletic director. I don't know how those guys do it, but he did it really well. And I told someone, I said, I think I want to be an athletic director. And so I got my master's degree in educational leadership, which is kind of a requirement in our area to be an assistant principal. And I thought that's the direction I wanted to go, was athletic director. And I knew I needed to open up that door to be an assistant principal. So I did that. And in 2012, fall of 2012, the athletic director job at Pope High School, the APAD job opened at Pope High School. Really a blessing. God just blessed us. We didn't have to move. We didn't have to change churches. It was 4 miles. It is 4 miles from Laster High School. I really didn't know many people there, but we had competed against them. So I knew a few of their coaches, but really didn't know what the inside of that building looked like. And man, it's a blessing because it's a family place, a familial place. And this is my 13th year as the AD at Pope High School. and I love it. It really is a great place with great people, and that's teachers, coaches, students for sure, and even our parents. So I mean, really blessed. We go to church with a lot of our people, and live. We live in the Laster community, but it's easy to work. Live, work, and play in the Pope community because we're only 4 miles away from the school. Our son goes to an elementary school in the Pope district, so his name's John. My wife's name's April, but yeah, it's great place to be, and yeah, I'm so blessed to be there.
That is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's have you spend a minute or two talking about any youth sports experiences. Did you play them all? Of course, I date myself when I was a kid, but it was just year round of football, then basketball, then baseball, then all over again. What was it like for you as a kid in Georgia?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I think people in my hometown, they knew me as a baseball person, passionate, always playing baseball. But I didn't play my first year of T-ball. My dad asked me if I wanted to play, and it was a lesson I've learned. I've back to as a parent. I said no, I didn't want to play. But my second year, so when I turned 6, I started playing baseball, and man, I love the game of baseball. I really did. It opened up a lot of doors for me. I thought I was pretty good at it until I went to college, and then I thought I was okay. But then when I started coaching the kids that we coach nowadays, especially baseball in East Cobb, Georgia, I was awful. I mean, these guys are really talented now. I'm gonna have to grow up and compete in this area in this time. But I played baseball pretty much my whole life. I played ball as a young guy through middle school, and then I decided in high school that I was going to settle on one sport. And I tell you what, the high school football coach who I had a great deal of respect for, he was the FCA director, and he was just a great man. His name was Phil Jones, but he tried to talk me into playing football my junior and senior year, and I wasn't in it. I really wanted to play college baseball, and I had a vision for what that looked like for me. But I regret that. I don't have many regrets in life, but I regret not playing high school football because I see the value in it. I see what it teaches kids, and I see the teamsmanship, the camaraderie there. So I wished I would have played. My dad had told me my dad played high school football, but he had told me I couldn't play football until I was in middle school, which meant really seventh grade. And by that time, I didn't have any interest. So, but I really do wish I'd played. So I was baseball, basketball, but primarily just baseball. So I see value in the multi sports. Our sons played baseball, basketball, flag football. I think he's a wrestler, but he won't get out there and do it yet. And he's playing golf. So I don't want to sound like I'm a single sport person. That's just the avenue I took for me, and I was pretty myopically focused on that.
Sure. Let's have you talk for a minute, Josh, about the mentors and leaders in your life, both as a young man and as an adult in the NIAAA.
Oh boy. Um, I could talk for days on this because it's something that's really hit me probably since 2012. And I look back, I had some great coaches, and my high school baseball coach was probably a mentor of mine, even though he was my coach. But I stayed in contact with him and still do. His son's one of my buddies, but his name was Ronnie Edwards. He coached me primarily through high school, 8th grade through 11th grade, and kind of coached me on through then. But when you talk about mentors and people who make a difference, kind of a game-changing difference in my life, yeah, I would say Mickey McMurtry, who was that coach I coached with. He taught me how to coach at a high level, how to be relentless, how to teach at a high level, how to balance both of those, how to be a great teacher and a great coach. And I think the best coaches are most of the time your best teachers in your building, right? And we try to talk to our coaches about that, try to hire those kind of people. Um, I had a guy in 2012 that I kept bumping into, and I was searching for a mentor, kind of a spiritual mentor, a personal mentor. This guy's named John Chaparro. He's quite a bit older than I am, but we had some common interest, and I asked him, "Hey, can we meet one day?" So he said, "Yeah, let's meet, go for a run." I was in the running at the time, and we met, and he said some things that really connected with me. And he has since moved to Texas and now Thomasville, Georgia, which is 4 hours away. So I don't get to hang out with him as much. But you talking about a mentor, a guy that made a difference in my life and still does, a guy that I pick up the phone and call when I have to make major decisions. He's a guy, John Chaparro. I go to lunch with a guy once a month named Joe Shadden. Um, he's a church friend. He's also a former Pope parent, but just a guy I've connected with, and we're able to get outside the walls of the school building. He's not in my building, so he's a guy that I can share things with and get honest feedback. He's a little bit further down the journey of life than I am as far as being a parent, and so that helps me out as well. But even I had on my list, and it may be a question later on, but I have a board of directors, I would say, and I know a lot of people do this, and they get together with their board of directors once a year. I don't necessarily do that, but I have a list of people. I've got it on my board. If I were at school, you'd see it behind me, and it's a group of men. Not that they have to be same gender, but I truly believe that a board of directors is somebody is something every person should have, especially in a leadership role.
That is some great insight. Thank you for that. Now, I know you mentioned football and you wish maybe you had played, but so outside of that, let me ask you a personal question. What's your biggest failure or disappointment, and what did you learn from it?
I've heard you ask that question to other guests, and man, I've listened several episodes, and I don't act like I got it all figured out, but that's a tough question. It really is, and I think it's tough because I think I fail a lot. I think I
I
missed
think
the
we all
mark.
do.
Yeah, I know. So hey, how do you pick out one that's bigger than the other? As I've pondered that question, I think an area that I want to work on and I've strived to work on, I really strive to implement in meetings is not talk too much. And people are listening to this like this dude's talking way too much. He needs to take his own advice and shut up. But no, I think in professional settings, I think that's where I probably have made mistakes and maybe they didn't hurt me, but after it was over, I was like, man, I wished I hadn't have said that to that person, or maybe I wished I hadn't have you know, give an insight to that person or to that opportunity initiative, whatever you want to call it. Just like I said, I just think I talk too much. You going back to the mentor question. A current mentor of mine is a guy you're familiar with, Carter Wilson. He's
And
kind of a
Carter,
dean of
yes.
ADs in Georgia. Was on the NIAAA board, and Carter, he's that guy that sits in a room and doesn't say anything, but he is incredibly wise, incredibly in tune to what's going on. And he literally, when he opens his mouth to start talking, everybody shuts their mouth. And that if I could be like somebody in one area where I feel like I fell a lot, it'd be Carter Wilson and not opening my mouth except to say substantially important stuff, right? One thing I thought about thinking about that question, Hutch, is I think I do know how to say I don't know. So that does help me not make some mistakes. I'll just tell people I don't know. I'll get back
Uh,
with you. I'll figure out an answer. And I've been around some leaders, and some people who don't have that skill and they say stuff, and then the mistake is you got to come back and change it, right? And I know I'm not smart enough to really throw out a bunch of answers, so I'll say I don't know a lot, and that may be a failure that as a leader I don't know. But I'm gonna tell you I don't know. I'm gonna go
mm,
try to figure it out. Well, I may mess it up on the back end, but I'm gonna try not to mess it up on the front end there. But man, I fell a lot. I wished I was better at
yeah.
it, and I wished I could keep my mouth shut. So
I love the fact that you brought up Carter because and I'm going to date myself because back in my younger years, the advertisement was when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen.
right.
And that's Carter to a T. And all the young ADs that are listening to this are going, who's E.F. Hutton? They don't know who I'm talking about, but that's incredible. But I've got so many questions on where to go from you. Let's go with this one. I want you to talk for a minute about the creation of your podcast, the idea behind it. Talk to people how you got started in it. You're the third podcast guest that I've had on the show, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so it's kind of a combined effort. Back in the fall, late December or late 2019, probably around November, December 2019. Don Baker, our county athletic director, and I were good friends. And he had really just taken over as our district athletic director position in Cobb County. And he was looking for something to do um, that would be unique to him and his position. I had gone to a GHSA, our high school association meeting. It was about reclassification, which is a big deal, right? And news agencies in Atlanta, they're big, so they're not covering things like that very much, especially the initial conversations. And I just shared with Don on the way back. I was like, it'd be nice if we had a way to share kind of immediately the discussions that happened in that room. And he said, well, I've been thinking about doing a podcast. So he and I got together, fleshed out what we thought we wanted to do. And we met with, we call it our podcast mentor. Once again, going back to mentors, a guy named Mike Lynch, who's the senior pastor at North Star Church here in Ackworth, Georgia, just in Cobb County, and he's a friend of ours. He's a community coach. Well, we had lunch with him, and he gave us some great insight. He does a podcast called Lynch with a Leader. Our fearless leader Phil Risen was just recently on that back in December of 2024. If you look up that episode, it's a great episode. But Mike Lynch helped us understand kind of what we needed to do to go forward with the podcast, and we as we got into it, we still had the idea maybe we would share information, but we quickly went to a podcast just like this where we have guests on and we let them share. We'll ask questions and kind of lead them in the direction just like you do. It's a leadership podcast. We want to talk about lessons that person has learned in through their leadership, the experiences they've had, any expertises they have. So it's more of a conversation. We like to call conversation based podcasts just like this. And we're finishing up our fifth year as we record this episode. It's amazing. I tell you what, it's amazing the people that say yes, right? And you probably
Hmm.
get this as well. I mean, it's amazing. We've had college people on. We've had some big names just like you have, and just reaching out to people. It's really unbelievable how many people will say yes for and allow a couple of two no name people to interview them or have a conversation with them. So looking forward to year six in 2025.
That's awesome because this podcast is going into its fourth year. Uh, and mention the name of it. I mean, I know the name, but mention it for everyone out there that may not be
Yeah,
aware.
I guess that'd be good too. Yeah, we'd love for folks to listen when they're not listening to UIAAA, but it's called Hanging with the AD. So little slang there. That's a whole story. I was doing some things internally at Pope on social media with athletes and people at games and stuff, call it Hanging with the AD, do a selfie with them. And we just thought we kind of said, hey, that thing's got legs. Let's add it. Let's add the podcast to it. That has since kind of gone away. I do something different now at Pope, but we call it Hanging with the AD.
Well, that's awesome. And let me ask you this as more of a personal question for me, because I know how I run mine, but I usually record somewhere between, in a week's time, I'll record maybe 6 to 10 ish, depending on how far out I need my guests. And then, of course, then I brush them up, put the music on, do all that kind of stuff. So do you do that, or do you just set a time every week where this is it and you record it?
No, so we're pretty informal. So we're both active athletic directors, right? We're both, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm an assistant principal, so I have other duties in the school. Don is our district AD. Obviously, he has other duties. So we're working them in our schedule. We release a new episode every 2 weeks. So we don't put too much pressure on ourselves, and we'll stay 3 or 4 months ahead probably. We're
Okay.
probably right now we're December 2024, and we probably have episodes through February of 2025. And with a break, we're not really getting anybody because we have scattered ourselves to do family holiday stuff. So yeah, we try to stay 2 to 3, 4 months ahead.
Well, it's good to know at least I'm doing something right. So I
Yeah, you're
appreciate
way
that
ahead of us.
insight.
Wow, six a week is awesome. I wish we could do that, but
Well, no,
you know,
when I say 6 in a week, but then so if I do 6 in a week, then like I will schedule them. So then I'll take 6 weeks off
Oh, right.
before I don't do six one week and six the next. There's no way.
Yeah, Don is the brains behind it now. I'll reach out and try to get guests and do questions and that kind of stuff. And Don makes it all sound good. He makes us look good with the editing and the publishing and all that good stuff. So
Well, that's awesome. Let me uh, have you talk for a minute about the Georgia Athletic Director Association. And I want to talk about three of the legends that I know. And when I say legends, I mean they're well known in Georgia and across the U.S. That, of course, being Lucia, your current executive director, Joe, and of course, we mentioned Carter. So I just want to give you a chance to talk about the Georgia Association, how you got involved with that, and then from there, how you got involved with the NIAAA.
yeah, Hutch, I'm glad you gave me this opportunity. It's a special organization. We have a lot of momentum right now. We are in the top 10 in membership. So I think last year
Mm.
we were six or seven, over 500 members. And at the mid-year this year, we were up another six members. So we're really excited about some of the things that are going on in Georgia. That membership spike is really a testament to several people. Joe is the executive director, Carter's assistant, Kevin Petrowski, and then our membership committee. But we have a lot of momentum. But to back up, yeah, I got involved in 2012 when I became an athletic director. I had been an athletic coordinator, but I was still in the coaching world, right? So I wasn't informed about the NIAAA or the GADA until I became a full-time AD. And I jumped in and kind of learned and went to the GADA conference in March of 2013, my first year, and kind of watched and went, I went to the beach and all that good stuff down in Savannah. But I watched from afar and I could see who the players were, right? You had Carter, you had Tommy Marshall, you had Bob Stinchcomb, you had Joe, but Lucia was running everything. Lucia was the executive director at the time. She's a Hall of Famer. She's an NIAAA Hall of Famer
Yeah,
for a reason. She was the last Georgia member, not Georgia representative on the board, but the last assigned Georgia representative, right? So Tommy Marshall and Carter Wilson both were on the NIAAA board at
at
large.
large, yes.
Right. Lucia was the last Georgia assigned rep, which I guess is how you say that. So and you mentioned I'm currently on the board and I'm that person now. It came back to Georgia's rotation and Joe, I tell you, you talk about Joe, he made a comment or made a suggestion in a board meeting. I was on the board already as I think I was in awards at the time, working on our awards committee, and it was time for uh, our seat to come up or us to name the person who was going to get this seat on the board. And Joe just said in a board meeting, he said, "Hey, I have somebody in mind," and said my name. And at the time, I had no clue what he was talking about. But I owe Joe a lot because being on the NIAAA board's been a professional highlight. It will be the highlight of my professional career, no doubt. And that's all because of Joe Sanfilippo. So his leadership, he was the executive director. He took over for Lucia and is really, just taking what Lucia set in place. She had a great foundation for the GADA and really allowed us to have resources to use to take it to a different level. And Joe's leadership, we're doing that now. We just implemented a new strategic plan. Carter kind of took the lead on that and put some people in place to lead our strategic planning. And Ricky Turner is president this year, Maurice Freeman president last year. Man, they really got us going with this membership spike and some internal initiatives that are going to kind of take us to another level. Carter likes to say, we got to get off the stagecoach and get on the spaceship, and that's no disrespect. It's just saying we got to go from where we were to the next level, right? And love that saying, and I think that's a good motto for us to that we're actually implementing. And then you mentioned Tommy, or I mentioned Tommy. Tommy just went into the Hall of Fame. Tommy Marshall. So
Yeah,
just to cut,
Tommy Marshall.
there you go. Hey, you got
Yeah,
the
well,
voice. That's
well, you
great.
you may
Yeah,
not know that I think 2 of the years I served on the board, Tommy was on the board as an
yeah.
at-large. Yeah, I was on the board before you were the AD at Pope, but
Right.
yeah, I saw Tommy in Austin, and but didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No, no. So I go back to that first GADA conference, and you could see who the players were, right? This is 2013 for me, and all these special people in the room. And I decided, hey, at the end of every year, I want to go sit down with an athletic director and pick their brain. And at the end of that first year, I reached out to Coach Marshall and said, hey, I'm so and so at Pope High School and would love to come sit down with you. And he said, yeah, come on. So I went down to Marist and sat down with Coach Marshall, and that created really a lifelong friendship. We are great friends with our families are just recently. April and Dana, they connected, and it's like they never miss a beat. So Tommy's very special to me because he took time to kind of help me get my legs under me. The second year, for some reason, once again, I could see who the players were in the room. The second year, I reached out to Carter Wilson and said, "Can I come to Decatur and sit down with you?" And I don't remember all the things we talked about, but I remember the value in developing those relationships with the big players in the room. And Lucia was that. Lucia was retired, and she was finishing her career in that leadership role, and she turned it over to Joe, and Joe's really taken it to a different level. But for me, the two guys that really made a huge difference at the time were Tommy and Carter. And then I just mentioned Joe a few years ago made a huge difference in my career because he suggested that I be the Georgia rep to go on the NIAAA board. So I can't say enough about those guys, but there are tons of them. Dexter Woods, Tony Wolf, I mean, who Bob Stinchcomb, who's since passed away,
Right.
was great leader. Johnny Seabrooks down in South Georgia. Coach Seabrooks is amazing. Once again, he's another one of those guys that doesn't say a lot, but when he says it, you better be listening. So.
That's awesome. So let's follow up with a little bit more about that unique opportunity you have to serve on the board. I know that I've had that chance, and some of the guests I've had on have had that chance, but it's I don't want to say it's an exclusive club, but it's just not something that happens very often. So talk about that opportunity and talk about what it's like to sit in that room, and maybe, at least for me, how different it was when I got on the board to what I thought it might be or should be.
Yeah, Hutch, I don't know. I just want to be reverent when I talk about it because it is a reverent room. We just got back from the conference 2 weeks ago, right? So as you know, and as several people know, you have three board meetings at the conference. You have one the first day, and then the last 2 days. And to sit in that room, yeah, there's work that gets done for our national association, and what that means is there is intentional thought and dialogue put into how to help our athletic directors across the country and really across the world now globally be better athletic directors. So I don't want to diminish that, right? It is a special room that is exclusive because those positions just roll over every 3 years. You have to be qualified in certain areas, right? With certain things. And then you have to get nominated. And there's a lot of great people in your area or your state that qualify for it, right? And that would desire to be there. And each state, it only comes around in the rotation, right? In the southeast in section 3 for me, it's every 24 years. So Georgia's not going to have another assigned rep into 24 years after 2025. So Lannis told me that the very first day I rolled on. He's like, "Hey, Georgia's not gonna have another rep for 24 more years," and it kind of hit me between the eyes. It was punch in the gut of like, this is really really special. And then I got to sit in the room, and my first day sitting in the room in Nashville was Dr. Mike Blackburn's last day or last meeting as the
Meaning,
executive
sure.
director. He spent a whole nother month, but that was his last meeting. So the emotions of that room to pay respect to him and to welcome Phil Reisen as the executive director, welcome Becky and Rich as the associate directors. It was a powerful moment for our NIAAA, and I got to be in the room that day. And since then, nothing else or nothing has taken away from that. Every time we get to sit together and do work together for our NIAAA family, for the membership, there is a reverence in there of what we're doing, and that reverence is set by Phil as the leader, Becky and Rich, because they have accomplished so much in their careers. They knew the importance of the NIAAA, and then across the room, Mike McGurk was the president. He was the past president. My first year president was Damian Frazzanelli. And
Hmm.
you talking about reverence and respect for others. They don't get any better than Damian, right? I'm so glad I get to sit in a room with Damian as president because he's all about others, and he helps you be a better person because he's about you, and he makes you understand it's not about you, it's about everybody else. We like a
Right.
kid. There's a book called The Five Graces of Life and Leadership, and Damien always quotes page 28, and it's not about you. And I know he talked about that in his podcast on with you, but that's what Damien taught us all. Damien just finished his 5 year journey there in the board, and I'm so glad I got to sit in that room with Damien as a leader. Then last year's tall as the president. This coming up year, Steve Throne. That room is special because of Damien's leadership, which he passed down to Tall and is being passed down. And I think his legacy is going to live a long time in that room because of the specialness that he created in that boardroom. So I don't know if I answered your question. I just want to make sure I am appreciative of the opportunity to serve my 3 years on the board. Hopefully, I've added some value in some way or another because I know how much added value and maturity and just reverence has been given to me through the other people in that room.
Sure, that is so well said. I want to give you a chance to share, if any come off the top of your head. I just looking back on my time on the board, and like I say, it was 15 or more years ago. But as awesome as it is being in that room, which is what you talked about, there is some of the best work that happens is during the non-work time. When you're out to dinner with the group or out to Connor on the Prairie in the summer in Indianapolis, types of things. So I'm just, if you got any stories that stick in your mind about the board, you might want to share with it.
Yeah, I mean, we've had great outings. They do a great job, the office staff there, especially Patty, of making it a retreat, right? I'd never been on the board, not a board of education. I didn't, you hear about a board of directors and a board of trustees, and every organization has these, but you don't, if you've never been on a board, you've just been a teacher and a coach and an athletic director, you don't really see behind the scenes of people running the organization and giving insight and consultation to the leadership of that organization. And it didn't take long to realize, hey, you as a board member are here for a purpose to give insight, to bring your experiences and represent a group of people, a group of members, a large group of members. And we need to hear that insight. What are your people, the people you're supposed to be representing, what are they experiencing? And how do these different components to the organization affect them? So, yeah, I had to change gears really quick, and the learning curve, I would say, was really steep for me to understand that. But as you said, you spend from 8 to 5 every day for 3 or 4 days, three times or really 2 times a year, and then at the conference, focusing on these things. And you're in Indianapolis 2 times a year, and then Patty and the office staff and whoever else is organizing the nightlife per se. It's not nightlife because you're going to bed early, but
Yes.
the dinners or whatever. It's really good because they really want you to enjoy your time together, not just your time in Indianapolis, but your time as a board. So one year during the summer, we went and played putt putt at this really cool putt putt place, and it was, we had dinner there. It was competitive. We got to compete a little bit, which you don't always get to do with other athletic directors, right? I can do games with my coaching staff, but I can't, we really don't get together with other athletic directors. So, um, we did that, the February meetings during the Super Bowl. So we get to spend time just sitting and watching the Super Bowl and those side conversations there, getting to know people. For me, getting to know people in the section three, like Lauren Otero, who's our secretary, that's a tough role. It's a very privileged role, but for 6 years to do that, and to work the committees and fill voids on committees like she does, getting to know her has been a true privilege. But Hutch, I say all that, and now I'm gonna answer your question. I apologize once again, talk too much, but for me, I've developed three or four friendships that go like beyond the bond of family. Um, and I probably shouldn't call names, but people listening to this are going to know who those are. Two in particular that are like brothers, and probably three, excuse me, three individuals that are as close as my two brothers to me. Guys that I'll say I love you to, and I don't know how that happened. I think God just or organized it where I was going to fall into this place on the board and have these opportunities to spend time with all these people that are on the board, but especially these three individuals who now I've developed a friendship bond that's closer than family. And once again, guys, when I talk to them, I tell them I love them because that's how deep our friendship is. And that would be my story of what I've taken from the board, and I probably have taken a lot more than I've given, and that's I feel bad to say that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Let me have you share your observations about the recent national conference in Austin.
Yeah, great new venue. I know that they are tearing that venue down, this April, right after our conference. I thought the city was great. I know a lot of people enjoyed getting out during the evenings and going and enjoying the music scene. I'm a barbecue fan, so I love the barbecue there. Just got to experience the one little barbecue place there near the hotel. Um, but from a conference standpoint, once again, it was a great conference, hugely attended, second most ever behind Nashville 2 years ago, then Orlando's third now, I think. But what it shows is there's a lot of momentum from the NIAAA's perspective with athletic directors across the country and across the world. Several international ADs showing up, a couple dozen, I believe, or maybe more. And it just shows that I think what the NIAAA is providing for athletic administrators is of great value because they want to show up in December to network and to learn and to enjoy time together, right? I know that's networking, but at the same time, it's a retreat a little bit. It's a time to get off your campus, to go hang out with people, like-minded people who do what you do, but also to get a little vacation as well. So I think all the things that the conference is supposed to be about, the conference in Austin was definitely about. Every class was taught, I think 58, 59 classes, and a lot of learning, a lot of great workshops. We had a new person doing the legal year in review, which is a big hit. I know
Mm.
that how important that is. Don Baker, our district AD, who I mentioned, he brings all that back to us, and that's a very important time. But the city of Austin was great. Having multiple hotels, that was new, I think, where there's not necessarily a conference hotel. I think that's something we probably have to be accustomed to going forward because the conference is so populated, right? And then there were a group of four of us that got out every morning and did a little morning walk at 5 a.m. So we got to see Austin a little different time of day. And it was a great time to see the city of Austin waking up every morning and get a little exercise and have some brotherhood together. Dustin Smith, Corey Odlin, and Mike Elson and I got out each morning and walked. And man, what a great group of guys to be with there. So I took that as a great blessing away as well. So great conference. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't beat the time of year. And I just encourage anyone. Hopefully, this comes out before Tampa. If not, enjoy Tampa. But let's get to Florida
Yeah.
as well.
Let me ask you a follow-up. So I was in two or three QPA meetings and I saw you there. So I want to give you a chance to talk about the QPA for those out there that are not familiar with it and the process and the work behind it that it takes for Pope to go through this.
Yes, sir. So QPA, Quality Program Assessment, it's for your athletic department. It's a team game, right? It's a an opportunity for athletic directors. You have to be CAA certified, but I think the vision behind it, at least what I've gathered, was for athletic administrators who have gone through the certification program that then IAAA offers, RAA, CAA, and CMAA. I know there's middle school and international as well, but we'll leave it at that. But the ones of us who have gone through that who say, what's next? All right, I got CMAA certified. You don't have to take all the classes. So what's next? Do I just take classes to take them? What can I do to improve myself or our athletic department? And the QPA is that. And had some couple people in Georgia get the QPA, the Quality Program Award this year. Uh, Blessed Trinity and Athens Academy, the first two Georgia schools, so they were a little inspiration. But the last couple of years, just hearing more about it and hearing how valuable it is to your athletic department to look at these 10 components that make up the QPA and see what you are doing within each of those components, what maybe you can improve on, and what maybe you can add to your athletic department was something I felt like we as an athletic department at Pope High School needed to go through. And I'm almost finished with it. We go through May of this year, I believe, April or May, but I've gotten a little bit ahead. There's 10 components, and they measure different aspects of your athletic department. And I can't overstate how important it would be for an athletic department to do. If you're an AD out there and you have your CAA, yes, it takes some time, but most of you can find a team of people to help you out, and it will help you make your athletic department better. It will help you brag on your athletic department and bring some attention to your school and your school athletic department there by going through the QPA process. The mentors, the reviewers, the QPA staff, PDA staff, and they're also helpful, and they want athletic departments to achieve QPA status, exemplary status. So a lot of people will help you make it work and get through the process if you'll just start it.
Excellent. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Josh. The first being this. You've got two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator. They need to follow Josh's suggestions in order to become a success. What would your two suggestions be?
Yeah, so I think I've already mentioned one of them is develop yourself a board of directors. So you may want to start with one person, one mentor, one person. These may be colleagues of yours. They may be people in your building, coaches who you're extra close to and have great wisdom or experience. I would suggest you go outside your walls and maybe even outside your the industry of athletic administration and find business people, people you can meet with or talk to more often. Mine, I have about 10 to 12 on mine. Once again, I don't ever get together, everybody together like I've heard some people do, but when it comes down to making big decisions, for instance, 2 years ago, my assistant who had been with me for 6 years, and she had a huge amount of responsibility in our athletic department. She decided to leave and take another job. Well, we had to find a replacement. And over a 2 day period, I was really struggling with the two finalists that that I thought we could hire. And I called 7 people on that board of directors of mine, filled them in real quick and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts?" And I got opinions on both sides. And I made a decision that was against some of those people's thoughts that they gave back to me, some of my board of directors, but I was able to get thoughts and have feedback that wasn't just mine. So develop yourself a board of directors, and then personally, I would say establish a date night. And you may be single, you may say, oh, I don't go on dates or whatever. We call it a date night because when I became athletic director, I was already married, and it's easy to work every night of the week. That's what we like doing, right? As athletic directors, we like
Yeah.
going to events, watching sports, watching our kids and our coaches succeed. So it's easy to go every night of the week. But I'd heard our pastor talk about having a weekly date night or date lunch with his wife. And it was something that my wife and I said, you know what? Now we don't have baseball season, which was 6 days a week, right? There was no date night during baseball season. If you're a head coach, you don't get to take a day off during your season. But now, as an athletic director, you've got every season, but you get to make your schedule. So make your schedule around one night of the week, and don't say it's going to be Monday this week, Thursday next week. That's not a date night. That's a night off. In my opinion, and what I took from, once again, a pastor friend, what the same day every week, I'm not working. I'm not working. I'm going home after school. For me, that's Monday. My wife knows I'm gonna be home pretty quick after school Monday. Now, I will say, you get into playoff season, especially spring sports. We just had it with flag football. The quarterfinals are on a Monday, 2 hours away. I went to the quarterfinal game, right? She understood that, but almost every Monday of the year, I'm gonna be at home. I'm gonna have a date night. So those would be my two things: a board of directors and a date night.
Great suggestions. Thanks so much for sharing that. We'll finish with this. Josh, what questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask?
That's a tough question. We asked Tommy Marshall that question too. Mike Lynch, our podcast mentor, said this is a great question to ask, and we've asked it several times, and you get better answers than we did. So you asked
Yeah.
that one better. Um, I did a scout report. I jotted down two of them. I'm just going to say one.
Okay.
I'm going to say the question I think I'd love to get asked, that has some relevance and has some substance behind it, is the best lesson I've ever learned. And you want me to answer it, I guess, right?
I do want you to
Okay. All
answer
right.
it.
All right. All right. Um, so the best lesson I've ever learned, I learned as a 6-year-old kid playing t-ball. I go back to my baseball days. My dad was my coach. Um, it was a life goal of his is to coach his boys, especially in baseball. So he was our coach for a long, long time, and he told me from the very beginning, you run on and off the field. You run on the field, you run off the field. And for a long time, all I knew was to sprint on the field and off the field. When I got to college, I finally realized, hey, there's a pace to this. You don't have to sprint. You can jog. You watch the big leaguers. They got a commercial break, so they get to walk a little bit, and you understand the pace. But for the longest time, all I knew was to sprint on the field and sprint off the field. And that's how I lead as a leader, as an athletic director. That's how I do my job, is that relentless nature of starting and then going through the finish line, right, of whatever it is. And my dad taught me that when I was 6, and he taught me that every year, of you sprint on the field and you sprint off the field. You are relentless in what you do, and that's how you accomplish things. So the running on and off the field was a lifelong lesson that my dad taught me when I was 6. So
That
that'd be
is
the
some
question.
that is some great wisdom. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. And on that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Josh Mathews, the Director of Athletics at Pope High School in Marietta, Georgia. Josh, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hutch, thank you.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.